Alright, let's bring that beat back.
Live on camera and watch his fingers go kablooey, because they inevitably do. And today I have, well, so far this past week I have been mostly working on a little bit more to the templates and the just general character creation section of things. I do also nonetheless have some things to show off, so let's dive in, shall we? And then for the most of the day we're going to be working on bodies, corpses, meat husks, whatnot. Which are a feature we had in the 1.12.2 versions of Various Oddities, but we are heavily revising for...
Whoop, 1.5 years. Boop.
I I've been pooped. Thank you very much, Esper. Much obliged. Yes, we had this running, and it is now, it's taken a much different shape. Because before it was, if something dies, we make a body, unless it's undead, and we store literally all of its drops and equipment and stuff in that. And that was massive and prohibitive, and caused a ton of problems for established gameplay mechanics, like mob farms especially. So, this time around we're doing something way different. Anyways, it is night, and I've been working on this ability here, Mist Form. It's not quite working just yet, because it's supposed to give you this ability right here, as long as it's active. You might notice it's not currently active, but I have the ability, so I'm still working on that. But, anyways, I digress. So here we have the species screen, which now has its own list here. The option you're already on is grayed out, so you have an idea of where you are. Pretty nice. So no longer do you have to cycle through every single species that's on the server. You can just directly click on whichever one grabs your fancy. Very nice. We do still also have the skip button, should you desire to just be a regular old human man. Or woman, or non-binary, or you can be whatever, in short. If we click on those through here, we'll get to the screen, but otherwise it just defaults to human. This has changed very minimally from last week, which is that the text is now drawn over top of the stars, which results in them being a little bit washed out, not gonna lie. But it also means that no matter how many stars there are, you can always read the name of a template, which is a kind of important detail. Because if I go into creative mode, so that I can access things that are otherwise unavailable to me, I have added this new template, because I figured people would want to see vampirism. It's not complete, it is missing a bunch of different effects that it should have, but super types become undead, lose all health abilities, gain the ability, burns in sunlight, that's why the world is currently set to night. Climb ability, damage reduction 10, overcome by silver and magic. Drain health is a new one. Fast health 5, mist form, which is the one I was working on. Resistance to cold and lightning 10, and plus free strength, so your bare hands deal 2 hearts of damage. It's pretty mean. Pretty mean. But if we grab that, we now have a bunch of abilities. I'm gonna take that off. And drain health is the most interesting, because this is a melee range ability. You have to move within a block of a creature. So let's just summon ourselves a pig in here. Okay, I need to climb on while I'm here, and also let's activate dark vision so we can see a bit better. Okay, right, so active, and if I go back to survival mode, just to show this off a bit better, okay, so I now have bonus health 5. Every time you do that, you get 5, you get 5 absorption hearts over there. Oh yes, and my fast healing has just kicked in, hooray! We can keep doing this, and we get 5 every time we do it. Meanwhile, the pig is rapidly dying, and this is all because of the stacking status effects that we were able to implement last time around. So it's just continually going up. It doesn't read as much like that, but it's fine. If I lose a bunch of health and then drain some more, it'll actually be the number it should be rather than just stacking onto the end. In which case it would. Previously, when we ended last stream, what would happen is if you had, say, bonus health 5 and you lost 3 hearts, well, you lost 3 health, and then you got another bonus health 5, it would tick up as though you had just gotten bonus health 10. So that would have been bad. That was not intended. But nonetheless, we can in fact now very happily just rise our health total to the absolute absurdity, as long as we have something that can survive us constantly draining it. And it does need to survive, by the by. But there we go. I forget exactly how much health it is that it loses. If I actually just look at the great health ability, that'll explain it. Okay, yeah, they lose 2 health, and then they also are given health drain 2, which would mean that they lose a heart every time. We gain 5. Like, we gain 2.5 hearts for every time we do that. So if you happen to have a friend who's okay with having a missing heart until they die, basically, yeah, there's that option. I didn't say it was a good option, but yes, now I have a ton of health. I also reworked fast healing a little bit. Previously, it waited until you took damage, and then it would repair that damage. It was sort of looking at things like trolls who don't regenerate health from certain attacks, and in that case, that's a different thing, because regeneration has now been implemented because we have bludgeoning damage, which I'll get to probably tonight as well. But yes, we have the vampire type, and we do burn in sunlight, and for those of you who are curious, yes, you burn alive slightly faster than you can heal yourself. So, you do end up dying eventually from the fire. Just putting that out there. Obviously, you can ameliorate that by having fire resistance, so it's like the status effect, or other kinds of things on your armor, but rules as written, vampires die in sunlight. No immediate defenses for that. But this is also a 6-star... where am I going? This is also a 6-star template, so by writ, no player should be getting this. Unless your server really is okay with people being absurdly powerful. Like, for 6 stars, you could also be a lich. Theoretically, a lich is less powerful than a vampire. Theoretically. And that's already quite a big set of stuff here. Look at that, paralyzing touch. You punch things and occasionally they just stop moving. But, there we go. Rules as written, actually, the paralyzing touch of the lich should more or less just knock you out entirely and give you a body that appears to be dead, but... Anyways, what we are working on today is indeed bodies, so let me go back to survival mode. I've still got all of my extra health here, so... it can be day, I think, because... yeah. There we go. I'm not currently a vampire, despite my inheritance of that health total. So, doodaloo, let's go 50 blocks up. That won't be enough to kill us, I think. Oh, right, it still thinks I'm gaseous, so I don't... Because this thinks I'm gaseous currently, it doesn't think I take falling damage. Vampires are supposed to be able to turn gaseous and turn into this kind of state, and back. But for whatever reason, that ability is having issues working at the moment. So, yeah. There. Okay. Now teleport me 50 meters in the sky. Good. Okay. One more time. Okay. So, currently, our game rule for this is set to players always spawn bodies. It is manipulable. You can have it be that players, bodies are never spawned. You can have it that bodies are only spawned whenever they have the needled status effect, or you can have it as players always. That kind of thing. And here we have our body. Now, since I'm in survival mode, I cannot move too far from my body. If I try to run away from it, I am pointed right back at it. I am effectively spectral in this status. I don't have the capacity to do anything. I can't break anything. I can't really open my inventory. But if I push the E key after this bar fills, I can respawn. But as we can see, there's some slight problems with this. And as noted there, I don't have full health, as I rightly should. I think I heard the body die, but sometimes it doesn't. Yep. So that's another thing that we need to fix up. Okay, am I back here? Is the body gone? Yes, good. So the body needs to clear away properly. I guess if it's if it's a player, I guess it should theoretically be a chunk loader. That would solve that problem quite happily. That would also provide something of a panic mode, because you no longer have the opportunity to corpse run indefinitely as long as your items are out of loading distance. So things to consider when you are setting that particular variable of your server. But the body is also supposed to have an inventory containing your main equipment, so your boots, your leggings, your chest plates, your helmet, your offhand and your main hand item, plus a few more extras for people to mostly RP or such with. It's like just shove it in your pockets, that kind of thing. That is not going to be your main inventory contents. Your main inventory contents are still going to drop normally, but all of that stuff will be on your body. Partially because it helps to actually identify, and also partially because it's nice to be able to dress up the body so that it looks thematically appropriate, that kind of thing. But yes, first thing that we need to fix is the health total. It needs to be back to full. That kind of currently happens because we are interrupting the main death event, and that's creating some weirdness. So, whenever the player dies, we need to actually set them back to full health. We also should probably do the same thing when you set your species and whatnot, because right now, if you pick something that has more health than you start with normally, you just have empty hearts there. Not exactly what people want. Not exactly what they want. But anyways. So, here we have that. Set health 0F. I presume that because we're doing it that way, it's causing things to be weird. But that also causes our it also causes us to die without having a death message, which is kind of an important detail. That said, I think we can settle for having a death message when that actually happens. It's fine. I will also say, bodies, if we make one for petrified players, that also frees up a bunch of people. Petrified rather than paralyzed. For petrified players, your body is a statue. You can still be resurrected from the statue by a different means than resurrection from a dead body, which is a feature that we will be adding in later periods. Right now, that is for a add-on mod that we have not started, so... Anyways, how are we all tonight? You doing okay? I'm a little discombobulated because I was off my meds for like 3 days, and they finally showed up yesterday, so I'm a little all over the place. Okay, so we set health to 0, and that does not immediately trigger the dead part. So, we need to find out where health is set back to 20 from dying, which I believe is part of our server bus. So there's all of the player respawning status. Unconscious death event, I don't even remember what this is doing. Oh, I think this is just plonking you wherever the body was. Corpse spawn, there you are. So there's our settings: players only, needled only, players and needle always, and then never. So, yeah, just checks if it should spawn a corpse. So if we should spawn a corpse, clear nearby target attacks, yes. Remove the potion effects, yes. Create a corpse, yes. Whether or not we actually spawn it, that kind of detail, is kind of important. Okay. So if your body is already dead, i.e. if you're already dead, let them die as normal, then you die. But we ideally want to hide the death message. You still see a death message, by the way, if you, when you drop as a body. It just is effectively spoofed. It's fake. Because at that point, you're not actually dead, those 6 months is 3 years, not 1.5. I mean, you had a multiplier of it, at least. There's that. So I wonder what the source is when Living Death event gets called this way. Let's do a check here. Spectral player died of blank. I have a sneaking suspicion that this will be null. In which case, as soon as we die properly, we'll just crash. But let's see, if that gets sourced, does not do that. Else blank. And we'll just say they died of Sugma. Very terrible disease, that one. I hear they're making great strides in defeating them, so yay, good for that. But, yeah, we try to avoid negative discussions on these streams. On my streams in general, because, hey, world is heck already. So, step 1, make sure you still respawn at full health, because that's currently not happening. Wasps just passed by, apparently. Oh yes, a piece of good news this past week. We got a big, tall stack of computer parts delivered. So I have been able to construct the vast majority of the new machine, currently codenamed Garmer, but we'll see what it actually ends up being called. And I need to retrieve a monitor from the front room, which is currently our major storage area, which is also packed to the literal ceiling, as well as some other components like a mouse and a keyboard to get working. But it might just need a boot drive at this point. It's not entirely clear because I might be salvaging a boot drive, or I might have already formatted that drive. I don't remember, and I can't check. So yeah, but last couple of days were fairly high in energy. There we go. Hit the ground too hard is the original message. So there's me body. Can't move too far away from it. That's something else we also need to tweak, because right now this limiting can in fact put you inside of blocks dangling beneath your body. There's not much you can do that. Okay, enter respawn. Oh, we don't trigger it. Interesting. We don't trigger it, so there is no message down here at all. Huh. I guess that's just what happens when you have no death message. Interesting. Okay, so can we set that to be no? No, it's final. Right. Does not have a message. On deaf, on living deaf. Okay, let's have a look at this. Where does this go? Just literally on living deaf. Okay. What calls that? Player entity, on deaf, all of which are damage sources. Interesting. What happens when... Very interesting. Okay. I don't know that we can hide the death message then. Because that means we probably have to just actually kill the player. From damage source dot... we need something that will actually bypass armor, or else it will actually break your armor and such. Well, it won't because you're not wearing it, but nonetheless, it will reflect on durability issues. Want float max value. Okay. If we do that, what'll happen is there will be a second death message. It'll be died from falling and then fell out of world, which is not quite correct, but I don't currently know a way to hide the bypasses armor. Damage line creative. Yeah, no. Don't see a thing. Out of world is the usual cleanup kind of damage source. It's the kind that, unless someone was an idiot, never anything can survive. If you take maximum float value out of world damage, you have to die. It's a hard and it is an extremely hard written rule. Max value for floats, by the way, is 3.4028235 to the 38th power of 10. So it's a lot. You always know it's a lot whenever it's a number higher than the human brain can typically fathom. Ow. I'm okay. Am I running in the right direction is the next question. Nope. Wrong direction. That direction. Good news is we'll only be teleported over there long enough for the existing body to despawn. Because I am now measured as alive. There we go. Yeah, what happened there is the body loaded, teleported us, realized it shouldn't exist anymore because we're registered as alive, and then got rid of itself. But also every time it stopped doing that, we were being teleported backwards and forwards, so... Anyways. Just close that up. Boot it back up. And see what we get. So how that's handled, by the way, is there is a pair of statuses inside of the player data. Inside all of the living data, actually. And that determines the condition of your body versus the condition of your soul. It's an extremely hacky way, effectively, to implement brain-body separation, which is a thing that happens in more thoroughly coded games. Allowing us to have the player be present but not be considered a player by most contexts. You're just gonna have a spirit roaming around, a disembodied soul. And what happens there is that your body condition gets registered as dead when you would ordinarily die, creating the body, and then if the body detects that your body condition is no longer dead, then it'll get rid of itself like that. And then we can also alter the behavior of how far you can go from the body and such depending on your soul's condition, so you're limited when it's bound like that. Anyways, so what we're looking for here is that we will die, and then we'll die again, and we'll get a second death message saying we fell out of the world, and hopefully respawn at full health. So, TP 23 is as high as you actually need to go. What did I... Oh, space. For anybody curious, not taking into account armor and other effects, 23 blocks is the point at which you will die if you land from max health. Ordinarily, max health. It's your health plus 3 because it takes 3 blocks to start taking damage and it's 1 point of damage per block. Okay. So we had Dev hit the ground too hard, and now Dev fell out of the world, and I didn't spawn with full health. That's very curious. I'm not imagining that, right? That is a thing. You do respawn with full health, yes? Am I running the wrong way? I want to come at this. Yes, I am. Okay. Also, half of the animals around here are missing health, or are missing hearts because I was testing them gratuitously for drain health. getting the body to despawn properly is our next thing, so that's fine. We can probably just limit that to players. I don't think mobs need to worry about it too much. Okay. So, what are we doing that's preventing respawn to have full health? That's an interesting thing. Because now we know it's not that, or probably isn't that. Let's see, player respawn, I think, is a thing. Yes. Are we messing with that anywhere? We are a little of it. There's the abilities, the size, we just set the body in the soul condition. Looks fine. We're not messing with the health at all there, we're not cancelling the event or anything. Clone event is not doing anything weird there. Set custom type, set species. Yeah, all that's fine. Okay, well there has to be a point where the player's health gets measured. And that I believe is in the living entity. So there's your current health there. And that literally just happens right as you get that done. Like literally when they create the new player entity. I wonder if that's the problem. That the player entity isn't the same. It isn't the same one when you go for a dimension, but it might be the same one when you respawn. Let's find out where this gets called in, because presumably that's in here somewhere. Handle health, is that doing anything? Nope, that's fine. This handles whether or not your super types and whatnot would alter your health total. So that's fine. Don't need to worry about that. Let's see, there's the Goblin Wolf. There's our abilities. Not anything in here coming from the event handler. Entity not player. Player entity. Prepare player to spawn. I'm guessing that gets called somewhere. Def time 0, prepare player to spawn. Client side. Interesting. Where does that get called to? Handle join game, handle respawn. Okay. Not seeing much here. Very curious. Can I just, literally in the player respawn event, can I just set them to max health? Would that actually fix this issue? It'd be the weirdest thing, because I actually can't quite tell why we're not respawning with max health. But that's an important function of death. Inside of the corpse spawn event, because once this event has fired, they're already doomed. So we should be okay. I suppose the next question is, does that happen even if I turn off the corpse code by setting it to never? Curious. again on my own. Let's see, I have 4 hearts, which is 8 health, so that is 11 blocks. 2 die. Yep. Exactly lethal. Hey, Nip. How are you? We are working on corpses today. Trust no one, not even yourself. Okay. So if I... Oh yes, you can also still talk from beyond the grave if you're dead, which is a feature that vanilla Minecraft technically doesn't have, because you always have the respawn screen up. Okay. No, I still don't spawn at full health. This is very curious. Okay. Which way was that place? I don't this way, I think. Totally sane things to say. I mean, coroners work on corpses all kinds of days. It's fine. Nothing to worry about whatsoever. Okay. Seems like our hunger is our saturation is such as getting reset, but not our health for some reason. I'm not entirely certain why that is. So I'm just gonna put return up here. That'll make dead code, but it's fine. I'm gonna turn that off entirely and see if that works at all. I think the music is a bit louder than my mic. A teensy bit, probably. There we go. Right. So we've turned off the corpse spawning entirely now. So what happens next? The objective here is that in a game where by default every entity that dies, player or not, just evaporates into a cloud of particles, we can actually have a persistent body left behind. And that allows us to do a bunch of other things like necromancy and resurrection. Which reminds me of back in the days of Resonant Rise Expeditionary Force, I think it was called. Because Dave loves long names occasionally. I played a priest for that in my Yokai Temple series. And one of the things that, I think it was the Random Things mod added, was this little, like, soul jar, effectively, that you could run over to where someone died, and if you had that on you, then it would leave a, like, particle effect that you could see. And if you right-clicked it, they would respawn instantly at that position. Unless they logged out during the Ender Dragon fight, which happened to us a fair bit because of lag at that point. Okay. 11 blocks up. And you can't do that in vanilla, because nothing leaves a trace of its existence other than its item drops. Okay, now I have full health. So it is some part of the corpse code. Also note, I've spawned exactly where I should have spawned, rather than in the trees over there, which is world spawn. Okay. So the not spawning with full health is caused by something in here. The next question being, what? The only thing that actually does anything is in here. So let's see, we create the corpse, and if it's a player, we cancel the event, we tell all the nearby players that you died anyways. We're not... Really the only thing that we're modifying here is when we cancel the event. Near as I can tell. So... Let's see, I point of order, I also don't actually see anything that sets us as being dead. Let's... Where is our living data modified? To tell us that to tell ourselves that we're currently dead. Da-da-da-dum-da-dum-da-dum. Is it player data? It must be, I presume it's player data then. Yep, there we are. Body condition. Where does that get set? Here. Okay. Player change condition event. Yep, it's fine. Player clone, player respawn, that's all fine. This is the one that gets called when you die, but I'm actually not seeing that get called. So I don't think that's related. Probably. Is player body dead? Is body dead? Set condition is dead. Set body condition. In-game and Minecraft GUI. Keybinds. Okay, that's what's rendering. Player condition change. When you become dead. Set health too. That might be it. That could be why we're able to spawn again. But not correctly. Actually, if we've got the unconscious spawn a body thing, and this, does that not theoretically mean that we're seeing two distinct bodies being dropped? It might, actually. There's a thought. Okay, well let's change this to player max health. You can't take damage while you're dead, anyways, so it's relatively inconsequential. Change that back to set health 0. And I guess for right now... Actually, wait, no, if that was the case, then we would already be seeing bodies spawning when I did the thing, as opposed to just going back to the respawn screen. Right. Okay. We cancel it. Player data.set condition is dead. That's how we transfer through to that. Okay, I got you. I got you. Which should then mean that we'll now respawn at full health because we got that done. Should being the operative word. We know if we call an actual cause of death, then we'll get the death message, so at that point, let's set the victim's position to their spawn point. Don't seem to have it, because this is not counted as a player entity. Your... I guess we just hit respawn player, don't we? Would that be it? No, that's only client side, so that's not helpful. Where's the player's spawn point stored? Prepare to spawn. Where do you go? Where did you come from, and where do you go? There should be a block position in here. Seeing it. Game profile, maybe? Nope, not there. Abilities. Not there either. Where's the spawn point stored? What? Optional vector 3D. I believe this is the spawn point. And it's public, so yay. But is this setting it or getting it? God, that's... I really wish they'd named this. Oh boy. This looks like it's getting a spawn point. What's this called? Oh, ability teleport to home. Perfect, I forgot about that. That literally just teleports you back to your spawn point. We've done this code before! Hooray! Okay. So, just gonna clear that for the moment and put a to-do. To-do, move player to spawn point. There. Should also probably just actually kill the body, just on the off chance. Yes, set dead works? No. Kill? Is that what it's called? Dead. Unkill command will do, I guess. Okay. Let's give this one try and I'll take my break. So you die, you spawn the body, you're tied to the body. After a little bit, the bar fills up, and then you set health to 0. You should be at 20 health. So we'll see what happens after that. And then everything should be good. You'll be spawned still far away, but let's see what goes. Oh yes, I am in, by the by everybody, I am in proper programmer attire today. Apparently it was International Feet Day recently, which I'm not going to celebrate on this stream. But apparently it was. I'm sure Twitch had a heyday with that. I survived! I won't survive this. There we go. Interesting way of getting a panorama here. You can just move a little too far from your body. As long as your body is the central focal point, you're fine. Okay. Died, and respawn. Full health. Good. Okay. So, the body didn't despawn, I note that, but that's a thing we'll have to figure out after the break. See you back in 10, everybody. Go grab yourselves a snack. Welcome back, everybody. We had a nice little break there. So, before we went to our break there, we managed to successfully get the player to respawn with the actual correct amount of health, which is an important detail. Now, we are going to try and see if we've resolved the problem of players not respawning at their respawn point, but instead going back to world spawn, which is also kind of a big detail, because players can set their own spawn points, they frequently set their spawn points vast miles away from the world spawn. So if you can hit somebody with a needle, a bone needle in various equipment for instance, give them the needle effect, and then kill them, they will then respawn miles away from anything that is of any relevance to them. So, want to make sure that we are actually able now, by borrowing code from our teleport home ability, to actually respawn where we're meant to respawn, which is that little stony kind of platform area where I've got the fences and the command block. Hopefully this works. We'll see. Next hurdle we have to get over is the corpses dying properly. Which really is less of a problem right now because we're respawning about 12 blocks away from it, so if this works though. If we go back to world spawn, it'll miss here. Okay. So here we are. God, it's gonna be interesting playing this stuff on the new machine. The new machine is like has half again as many CPU cores as this one does. Okay, so our spawn point is right here. So I dive into the pit, as it were, from here. There we go. Okay, so there's the body. Can't actually get too far away from it, as is intended. And what we want to see is that I respawn by that command block. Let's find out. I did not. But apparently something got moved to me. Interesting. I'm not too far away, though. There we are. Okay. So why was I not moved to my respawn point? That's the question. Is it because we didn't use a... is it because I didn't use any kind of damage event, so we didn't get through this? Probably. So let's switch this back to murdering you by pulling out the world. Which is generally just on kill command, because the kill command literally just does exactly that. That's why it says you fell out the world when you /kill somebody. I wonder if there's any flag to say don't leave a death message from a given thing. Probably not, but like I imagine that's a thing that they didn't think of. Like if we can just, is there a handler for if that's a null, for instance? Doesn't seem to be a handler for if that's a null, so if we made a damage source that actually did have no death message attached to it, we probably would cause a server crash. Probably. So let's not do that, and we'll just settle for having a second death message. Or we can we can do the opposite, as it were, and just create a death message which is actually talking your resurrection. So-and-so hit the ground too hard. A few seconds later, so-and-so resurrected from the grave. Or just respawned, I guess. Just, Not sure, that sounds entertaining. Instead of a death message, it would be a life message. Okay. So hit the ground too hard, wait for the bar to fill up. It's only a few seconds. I forget how many exactly, but it's only a few. Less than a minute. Respawn, fill up the world, and we're still not where we should be. And things are still going smoky at our feet, and I don't know why. Okay. So that time we definitely, absolutely, categorically called this. So what happened there? And also, which direction is that place again? Keep forgetting. It's away from the savannah. Yes, this way. The teleporting is because the body was still here. It's totally fine. Right. How very odd. We should be getting teleported to our actual proper location. Why aren't we? Is the next question. Is it because that happens after death? No, it's not that. Is that this function right here is the block position of your bed. So use this. Let's see, remove the existing player. Create a new server player entity. Yes. Copies all the data, the primary hand, all that sort of stuff. What we're looking for is where it sets the position. Which appears to be this, because we have to let the respawn anchor be plugged in. Set location and angles, right there. What is F1? Not entirely certain what that's doing. I think that's just calculating which direction you should be facing. Which is a little irrelevant to us, for the most part. So if it's present, set location and angles, do the world thing. Otherwise, send the packets to change game state packet. What is that state? I have no idea. I have zero clue what that state refers to. Connection, set player location to all of these things, respawn packets. So it sets the player position, then tells it from the server to the client where they are. I wonder if that's significant. That packet, the respawn packet doesn't have the player dimension and whatnot. Right, it has the player dimension and such, but it doesn't actually have the location of the player, so far as I can tell. So, if we call through the player's connection from the server player entity and set the values like that, then we might see them move. Who knows? That's all that we need.
Alright, let's bring that thing down.
might do the trick. Who knows? Let's find out. New death system. You have like certain plans on it that you can hex the player that killed you or something like that upon death. There are a couple of things. There are a couple of effects that can do that. Let's see. There's one. There's a spell in, I think, Heroes of Horror, which basically holds its own internal spell, and whenever you die by a means that you predicted, to be specific, it makes a thing happen. So you can, for instance, curse people that killed you. Once I've gotten the whole system working, it's mostly intended for decoration. So spawn a couple of bodies of things around and set them to be persistent, that kind of thing. And for necromancy and resurrection. So you can go to a player's body and respawn them at the position where they died, like the middle of a dungeon, for instance. That would be utter hell to get back through naked and alone. But also necromancy, so that you can actually like deliberately create zombie kobolds or skeletal T-Rexes, that kind of thing. That's the main purpose of the death system. But because we can detect when a player creates a corpse and such, we can absolutely hook onto that through an event and have spell effects do things as a result of it. Totally doable. Technically, you're creating old-timey WoW death running system. Ish. It's more like a breathing moment between respawning. Because right now what happens is player dies, their body immediately dissipates into a cloud of dust, they hit respawn whenever they feel like it, and they respawn back at their spawn point. What happens here is you die, there's a period of time before you can respawn, and then you can respawn where you want to be and that kind of thing. So it's not quite the same as WoW with the old spawning as a ghost and running back to your body. Not quite. Plenty of mods have already done that, in fact. Okay. We want to be respawning over by that command block. But the way that Minecraft is built is... Oy, it's fighting us a fair bit on this. Still over here. Interesting. How do that be happening? So we're still not getting moved. Is that because this is happening only on the client side? Handle for players call on both ends, so let's just actually put this code where we want it to be. Ooh, I get a little treat. Right, thank you, Aluka. Is this because you're about to make me do a whole ton of exercise? What have we got here? We have a twirl. Ooh, nice. Me without my 99 ice cream. Okay, so for this we need all of this code right here. So the packet dead def is what happens when you are already dead and die, because you hit the E key when it said you could. So in this case we know it's a player, so that part's fine. Oh, we didn't get the detail there, actually, either. We didn't see the whole, the message. tell the body to die? It should be fine. We could, but it's probably fine. Oh, and it wasn't doing anything because we were actually telling this body to die, which hasn't even been spawned in. Wonder if that's important. What am I working on, Mr. Starstream? We are working on corpses, which are a linchpin for allowing us to do resurrection, necromancy, and a little bit of decoration as well. Okay, so if we are on the server side, then do all of this stuff. That should mean we get set to the right position. I'm actually going to move player data set soul condition to roaming. There. The fact that the roaming condition, by the way, is basically meant to mean you have a body, but you're not tethered to it. So right now, when we're dead, we can only go within a certain radius of our corpse, but with the roaming condition of our soul, we're not limited like that anymore. There's also bound, where you are limited to being exactly on top of your corpse, which might be used a little bit more malevolently in future. There is a spell effect called Soul Jar, I think it is, or something to that effect. And what that allows you to do is bind your soul like completely to a little box, and then if somebody comes within a certain range of that box, you can control them, like possess them, and their soul is then stuck inside of the jar. At which point, that would be a condition of the soul is bound and the body is an entity at that jar's position. So, being able to do these things is lots of fun. A lot of fun possibilities there. Okay. So here we are. Do the death. Do the unaliving once more. I should just create a button or something for this, shouldn't I? I should just create a command block and a pressure plate. Would help. As a note, bodies are not spawned if you die of falling out of the world damage. Which might explain why that code was getting skipped now that I think about it. Because we were using out of the world damage, and it ignores if you take it from being out. That might have been why it was missing. Come to think of it. Oh, who the funk? Okay, I am smart person. Whoop. Well, we spawned somewhere different for once. Where even am I? Should be loading up the body here if it's still alive. Oh, hey, that's a good sign. The body died. That's a degree of progress. Hooray. Love this for a start. Let's actually do that thing that I just mentioned. So, blip. And we're gonna say effect give. Might as well be the nearest player, why not? Instant damage. 10-10, I guess. There. And let's give this a pressure plate. I can't remember if corpses can affect pressure plates, but it shouldn't be a problem. Our main question is, why are we not spawning over here, where our spawn point is, and instead spawning at the world spawn? That's the question. Is there anything in our log here? There's no moved wrongly, but that's because we didn't get teleported. So what's going on here? We get your destination, being frequently either the Nether or the Overworld, or wherever. We get the spawn point from the player, going wrong here? Do we need to do the kill command first? Do we need to just make sure the body's dead? There's a point. Did we even kill the body? There's a point. We didn't. So why did the body not do teleporting to us? Oh, probably because we were in creative mode. Yeah, it was probably because we were in creative mode it didn't teleport us that time. So, let's run one more test of that. Yep, killed by magic. Oy. Why do I go here? That's as though it's teleporting me and then killing me. Which is exactly the order of things. So the problem then might be that we're being taken to world spawn incorrectly rather than our main spawn here. I wonder. And we're back at this spot again. Okay, so it was this way. Let's see if we get teleported at all. Yep. So we weren't teleported before because we were in creative mode. Very thankful that didn't go off. Okay. Else I've been stuck in a weird loop. Okay. So how where are we going wrong here? At no point in that process did we see a single frame of us being at the correct location. So what is going on? We're now set to roaming, which means the body no longer cares about our position. We then die properly. What if we can actually just kill the player, kill the body here? Probably worthwhile, but for right now it's fine. Okay, so we can get the player spawn points, their vectored spawn point, and the world spawn point. Let's put some sysouts in here and find out what's going on. No idea what that's referencing, but it's there. I wonder if it's because we're seeing this. There's a fort. Like, what is this value? That's the bed position, I think. I think that's the bed position. But I don't know for sure, because it's already bleh. Let's see. Set spawn. Yeah, it looks to be if that equals that and blank equals that. Which is the flag, not flag. Yeah, that's the bed position. Okay, so that's not the player spawn position, that's player bed. Which might be relevant, come to think of it. So function 241140 underscore capital K underscore is the player's bed position. Now we know. Great. Where's that called here? Yeah, that block position. What's the optional here? It's that. God, there's so much happening in here. Very little of it is translated. Ugh. This is not, by the way, I should stress, this is not how this code actually looks to Mojang. It might not look too dissimilar to it, but this is not what it actually looks like. So, okay. Can I just get the player list object and tell it to redo the player? Would that save me a bunch of trouble? Not sure. What is this function? Optional vector. That's... we've used that function. 242. Yes, right there. Okay, so if it's present, otherwise empty. But if it's present, we check the block state and such. I still don't know what this game state refers to. Oh, this is a pain in the neck. Okay. Else blub. Where blub is equal to world spawn. If I do that, is it going to send us to the right spot? This is not going to be perfect handling, but will it tell us a little bit about what's been happening here? If so, that's at least good for the moment. And then we can move on to the last thing of the night, which is to make the corpse actually load its chunk. And in that way, we can make sure that it actually erases itself properly without teleporting us weirdly. Okay. Dying. There's a pressure plate that's only affected by players, and heck if I can remember which one it is. Or at least I think there is. I might just be thinking of modded items. Annoyingly, there is not just, like, a table of what the different pressure plates react to. Ugh. Literally, there is just a link to the redstone circuit page of the Minecraft wiki, and it is not the least bit helpful. Okay. Wooden pressure plates detect all entities, stone pressure plates detect only players and mobs, light-weighted pressure plates detect all entities, and heavy-weighted pressure plates detect all entities. Okay, so I am thinking of a modded item. Okay. Why do I keep getting something down here? That's weirdness to me. Okay, what does the log say? Blight effect instant damage, killed by magic, fell out the world, fell out the worlds. No teleporting to position there. Interesting. Okay. Let's do that with some diagnostic. The fact that corpses can keep pressure plates triggered is a little unnerving. A little unnerving. Just safeguard that. just overthinking this. If I can just get rid of this and just let the deaf handle it. Who knows? So next stream, the plan is to work on inventories. It's going to be a little bit weird because I'll need to access probably my own corpse. We'll see how that goes. 5 kilograms on the left. Okay. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There we go. Whew. That is... I feel like chat hasn't been working me quite as hard as they used to, but... Teleport a player to world spawn. Okay, so this triggered, but nothing else did. So the good news is we are getting teleported, which is what we expected to see. Which is for whatever reason not able to find where we're actually meant to be, which is right by the command block. Mind the pressure plate. Don't tempt me. I mean, you guys are more or less in charge of my fitness, so go for it. Okay, let's see what happens if we actually just turn all of this off, because we haven't actually seen, I don't think, a point where we weren't attempting to do this. Oop. I'm trying to get a horde. Oh, yes. So what is our null hypothesis here? What happens when we don't do any of this? Where do we end up? And is the answer still world spawn? We still end up at world spawn. Interesting. Or the vicinity thereof, at least. So why... Here's the question. Why do we end up at world spawn? What part of this code keeps ending, like, putting us there? When if we turn off the code that causes the corpses to spawn at all, we end up at the correct location. Is it because this being cold causes something else to happen? For players, specifically? Let's have a poke. In response to that function. Let's see, so there's the death messages. Is there a point where anything else happens. Doesn't seem like it. Set entity state free. What does that mean, Precious? What does state free mean? What are we doing? We are working on corpses tonight, so that we can actually have an object to work with that allows us to do things like resurrection magic and necromancy. But of course that has to work quite nicely with what players expect of just respawning. So right now what's happening is that we are somehow being transported to the world spawn instead of your bed spawn point, which is a bit of a problem. That. So we're trying to figure out what's causing that. Reset to bounty box, spawn drops, set motion. Nothing about setting the position though. Okay. If I take out the world spawn part here, what'll happen? Where do we end up if I take that out? Right now, you die, you leave a body, you're stuck to the body for a period of time before it lets you respawn. You then die again when you hit respawn, and you can see the respawn screen. And then you respawn at world for some reason. That's the part we're trying to figure out. We've already figured out why we were respawning with low health, which is good, because you always want to spawn at max health. But now we've still got this other problem. Okay, so magic pressure plate of doom. Stuck to the body. Yep, exactly what we wanted. Where do we respawn? This location is where we should be. Why do we end up here? That's the question. Why do we end up back here at world spawn? So can I move world spawn anywhere closer? Okay. Let's see, my spawn point is over here. There is, like, is it set spawn? Yes, set world spawn. I named it. There. Now it's a bit easier to find our way back. Yeah, the jittering is because the body isn't getting removed, which is partially because it's not loaded in chunks at that point in time, so... Okay. So we want to be by the command block. Instead we end up over here. Seemingly because we get teleported back a little bit to the body, I think. So... let's try and get the body. So if body does not equal null, and ideally it should be a body, but... And body... on kill command, I guess. And we should kill that before we do anything else. There. Can I convert from entity to living entity? That is fine by me. Okay. So, let's see, what was the teleport we got that time around? That was none of it, apparently. It didn't try to teleport us that time. Okay. So we hide all that. This one. Oh, rubber, got one too many. Okay, so we set your soul to roaming, we kill the body, and then we do the on-kill command. Okay. Now I believe there may be some other stuff here. Let's check. Yeah, it's just literally only used by that. Well, isn't that handy? I think we have some mix-in that is also responsible here. Take tail. I don't even remember what this part is for. Oh, right, yes. Move within range of entity where... Oh, because if player's soul bounds the... Oh, right, yes, I know what this is. I know what this is. Okay. If entity does not equal that, and entity alive? Yes. Which it should read as not whenever it gets murdered by damage. Is there anything for players down here? Player entity mix in. Nope, that's just the scent. So there's that, and this is alive. I need to check that. Just make that completely stop the second it hits dead. It shouldn't really have any of that, but spell work with modern runes. Yes, I'm doing far more terrible things than making rocks think here. Think of this as redstone to the nth degree. And boy, is it definitely put together with sacrifices of blood, sweat, and tears. Mostly sweat and tears. Okay, so we're not teleporting anything, but we are making sure that the body dies. We've also changed the code for the body teleporting to make it that it only does that whilst it itself is alive. It should have stopped doing that when it thought we were remote, but either way. So let's see where we end up now. Okay, so that's world spawn, that's our player spawn point, here is our death. Just provides a massive amount of immediate damage to us, saves us from having to wait to drop. Where do we go? We ended up exactly where we need to be. Grand. Okay. Now is that just because it was loaded? In which case, if I set the spawn point for the world...
A new challenger approaches.
Yeah. Hey, nudies. Here. So if we set our spawn point over here, where the world spawn should be, do that again, see if the same thing happens, because right now it's so close it's just being lit up by being world. So our personal spawn point is by this command block, world spawn is over this way. We expect, or hope at the very least, to end up by the command block. Oh, perfect. We got it. Yes, we just had to murder the corpse and make sure everything else worked okay. Huh. Very good. Very good. So that is one more thing handled. So let's see. Player binding to body is fine. Got the respawn working now, so... Bludgeoning damage, I believe, heals properly. Murder the corpse. Yes, we had to destroy the corpse, if that helps you. So let's see. What's our next thing? Our next thing is to make sure that the corpse goes away, but it kind of already does that. It's just that if we shouldn't be able to cause this. We shouldn't be able to be far enough away from the body for it to unload, but the body needs to be loaded for us to destroy it. So, that's our next thing. I need to figure out how the hell chunk loading works in this iteration of Forge. Oh goody. But we will get to that in the next hour, last hour of our evening. So anybody who's new to watching this, a reminder that literally everything I do, including this, is powered by you over at patreon.com. We also have a donation goal going at the moment, which pays for my medication. So if you have anything to spare, then please and thank you. Otherwise, I'll be back in about 10 minutes. See you then.
Remember all the happy times we had? Very much alike.
Welcome back, everybody. Hope you had a nice little break there. Welcome to the final hour of our evening tonight, and we're going to try and work on chunk loading. Now, this is a thing that tends to shift a bit basically every single time Forge releases a version, so this might not get accomplished tonight, but we're going to try. We're going to try. And we're going to start by, here we have how we did chunk loading in 1.12. Because we have a spell in the 1.12 versions of various oddities that allows you to load chunks. So hopefully, we can just replicate most of this and it'll be fine. It probably won't be fine, but let's see what we can do. Okay. Does Forge Chunk Manager still exist? Yes. Thank you for that, Licht. Okay, chunk loading spell. Yes, we had a magic spell that would basically just act as a chunk loader. It was pretty nice. Ticket helper, ticket tracker. We don't just have ticket, which is a little odd. And I don't see anything. Is it just ticket helper, I guess? No, there's not even any functions to that. Interesting. Okay. Let's have a look in there.
Yep, meds. Yep, meds. Yep, meds.
Thank you very much, Cam. Heavily appreciated. Right, sadly it gets less weight on this than left, but okay, right. Okay. While I'm doing this, I will break down the procedure for this, okay? So, every chunk loader inside of Forge, effectively, has what's called a ticket. That ticket has a little document inside of it that says exactly which chunks it is responsible for keeping loaded. Every time that you create a ticket, you then load the chunks that you want to load into that ticket and give it to the chunk manager, and it will then load all of those chunks that you've given it, and then you are then responsible for freeing up that ticket to say, hey, I'm no longer responsible for loading these chunks. That exact process hasn't changed in about 10-15 versions, I think. And I've probably overdone the lifting here, but hey, let's keep going. So that should be more or less what we're looking for here. It's just a matter of figuring out exactly what the precise series of functions we have to call is. Okay, right. So, we have a couple of functions here that just force the chunk, which is not what we're looking for, but might be a start. Reinstate persistent chunks. Forced chunks saved data is probably outside of our purview here. Gather tickets by mod ID. Actually, it's probably easier if I just look here, isn't it? Loading, read entity forced chunks. Could that be it? Yeah. Do I seriously just have to call this by that? Do I seriously just call this? Is Forge handling its own chunks now? Its own tickets? Forces a chunk to be loaded for the given mod, with the owner of the ticket being the UUID of the given entity. It might be actually this. Okay. Can I then retrieve that? Can I find all of the chunks being forced by this particular entity? Like that's the question here. So check if chunks forced. If not, force chunks. And then on def we have to make sure this thing gets rid of them. So where there's presumably an owner UUID somewhere here. Is there anywhere I can give this a UUID? Ticket owner UUID, right there. By mod ID. What are these values called here? Lots of things. Lots and lots of things. Oh god. Tickets, getter, mod sorted own chunks, no. Ticket helper has nothing that I can see. Oh, hang on, get entity tickets. That's helpful. Oh, it can remove by owner. If okay, if we can get a ticket helper. If there's anything that creates a ticket helper, bearing in mind this is a private constructor, so we can't just create one. So, where does that get created? Reinstates forges force chunks when vanilla initially loads a world and reinstates their force chunks. This method will also validate all the forges force chunks using endeavour. How do I check if this thing is actually done? I can get a set of tickets. Gathers tickets into a mod filtered map for use in providing all tickets the mod has registered to its loading validation callback. Okay. But that requires a ticket tracker, which we don't have currently. What is going on with this? Is there an instance, by the way, of Forge Chunk Manager that we can actually, like, call? Or is everything here just static? It looks like everything is static. This little S by the side here indicates static, and that means that you don't need an object to call this. I don't see anything. Let's see, void, boolean, 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 T extends comparable to super T, nope. Void. There's nothing in here that actually describes a return value that is actually of any use to us. I presume that if we force the chunk and then the entity dies, the entity is no longer in existence, it'll unforce it. But I don't actually see anything related to unforcing, which is very odd indeed. Like, there's this save data. Get or create for this given world. Okay. What happens if the entity dies, is my question. Get chunks, get entity forced chunks. Right, well, let's... This is a thing you have to be careful with, because if you're not careful, you end up loading basically 5 times whatever a player would normally be loading. Like, imagine if chunks never unloaded. The server would die very quickly. So, okay. But for right now, let's start by just forcing the chunks, shall we? So let's see, plus equals this chunk coord, I guess? Yes, there you are. Correct, yes, X and Z, good. Good. Very simple little scan here. Chunk. Wait, check if... Yes, we are definitely in the right place. Good. Reference our mod ID. And that would be this chunk coord x plus x. And then this chunk coord z plus z. Ticking, I have no earthly notion off the top of my head just what these things require. Server world equals server world. There. Is there a different server world here? Or a different world? Nope, good. Okay. That should cause this to function. Should being the operative word. So if we somehow die miles and miles and miles away, if we have our second death miles and miles away from our corpse, the corpse should still die. Where's our packet dead death? I could just call that true death or something, I don't know. Make this a warner, I guess. So if we don't manage to find the body to despawn it, we'll just say that. Okay, see that in the log. Yeah, spells were fun in 112 because for the most part they didn't physically exist, which felt very accurate, very appropriate for them. They were just a block of data, usually on the server, and if you had a special effect you could see the locations of where they were cast from and such, but not a whole ton else. Okay, if we die and go into creative mode, we can move completely freely away from where our corpse is. So, step one, our world spawn is still over there. We know that. There we go, step one, die. Step two, enter creative mode. So that we are no longer bound by the mortal limitations of being dead, I guess. So we'll just be way over here. And because we're in creative mode, we're not getting the option to respawn. If we go into survival, I believe we just get teleported back. Yes, we do. But the fact it was able to do that suggests that it was still loaded. Also, I'm not sure how many times this thing is loading here. I presume that if we look into here... Actually, I'm just gonna... just in case it is just adding a mountain of chunks. Okay. So there's that. The add part is curious to me. Okay, there's still add. We're not getting massive errors, that's good. Success. If add success equals tickets.adds, will get chunk. Okay. If success, then save data set dirty, force the chunk itself again. Okay. Get register ticking ticket. What is that? What does the ticking ticket do? So I just have... I wonder if this is as simple as... Oh, actually, there's a fault. We were far enough away, this definitely should have unloaded. So the fact that we still get teleported back means it's still loaded. Okay, that actually is progress. So now we need to make sure we actually can delete that thing, which evidently we can just do by making that into a false. I'm guessing. Okay. So, let's create a data parameter. And this is basically just a little bit of thing inside of the entity that allows us to know if we've done a certain thing. Set that to false. B compound get boolean chunk loading. Yeah. Okay. So, if it's player and we're remote, and also we're not loaded like that. Make sure this corpse is loaded. Oh boy. Talk about weird sentences you'll say when you're programming. Okay. And now, when we call the kill command, we do this, but we say false. There. Okay. So that will undo all of that. We also want to actually make sure that we register that we've done the thing here. There. The last thing that comes to mind is we don't know. Theoretically, a corpse can move. So, if it moves to a different area, it's not going to load all the new chunks. So, let's create ourselves a couple of quick functions.
Alright, let's bring that feedback.
And want to load them. Which is more or less identical. Okay. So, we need to store the last X and Z coordinates of where we were loading a chunk. And if our current ones are different, then we need to set the whole thing back again. Just unload all the chunks from that position at the very least, and then load them. Let's have a getter for this. Just so I'm not typing this out. Okay. So for that, we're going to need X and Z, which would be two different integer values. We could theoretically use a block position, in which case can we get a chunk position from a block position? We can! Okay, so if we store a block position, then we can turn that into a chunk position, and just update the block position every time. Okay. We might actually have this done fairly quick. keep the loaded parts because I don't think we can make this into an optional, as it were. And the block positions have to be at least 0, and we don't want to be accidentally loading the entirety of the central of the world. Just in case. Detail, is that it? Block position, yes. Okay. So now we have a true or false of are we loading anything, and we have the load position of where we last loaded them. So, chunk position, current, equals, new chunk position, get position, I think it is. Get pos, something to the effect. Yep. Okay. And chunk position previous. Get load position. There we go. Right. So, if current does not equal previous, then unload chunks, and then load chunks again. So we unload everything, then we load everything, then just handle it. There is a... let's see, if it's not true, if we're not loaded, then we just load chunks, I think. Else if... It should just be an else, really, isn't it? Then we handle this. So if we're not loaded, load us. If we are loaded, continually update the 3x3 around us to make sure that we actually are. But now we have a slight negative, which is that this is only going to load around the area we currently are in. So we need to actually give this some coordinates. Fairly simply just the same thing here, but we just take, instead of that, our chunk x value. And then this can just avoid that. There. So we load chunks always in the immediate vicinity of ourselves. Everything else should be good. Everything else is actually locational. So, say if we're not loaded, and we should be because we're a player corpse, load the chunks. If we are loaded, then continually check to see if we're actually loading the right chunks. If we're not, update. Unload all the existing ones. From previous X and previous Z. There. Okay. I think that works. I am presuming that works because it's actually a little difficult for me to test. I don't have a chunks long region that I can like just slowly wash a corpse down. I don't have the River Ganges near me. But the fact that we were teleported after being miles and miles and miles away from the thing certainly confirms that it was chunk looting. So hopefully now it'll work fine. There is a slight possibility that it already loaded several hundred tickets. It already loaded several hundred tickets for those chunks it was in anyways. So that world may just be verboten now. But we got chunk loading. And I think that's more or less the last thing we have to do today. Ooh. Alright then. Okay. So, to summarize, let me actually just boot the world so you guys have something more interesting to look at than this code. Well, yeah, the code is interesting, but it's also incomprehensible to most people, including me most of the time. Cam showing up to give the obligatory ooh. So this has a number of effects. The first being that no matter where you hit the button to respawn, your corpse always despawns. The second is that anywhere there is a player corpse, even if that player is offline, the area is loaded. Not as big an area as if it was an actual living player, but this means that, firstly, your corpse is always going to despawn. Secondly, your items that you dropped when the corpse was created are also going to despawn, guaranteed. Third, a corpse is a chunk loader now, so you can do with it all of what that means. If your body is lying around somewhere for a protracted period, the farms next to it are going to grow. And all sorts of other things. Which is a weird thing to take into account, to take into consideration, but there we are. So let's see. Next week we'll be adding an inventory to corpses, which I guess means I need to make a corpse spawn button. And that'll allow us to actually, like, put our different items onto the thing, dress up the body however we like, put, like, secret messages on them, like just, I don't know, anvil a piece of paper and shove it into the corpse's pockets, that kind of thing. And that'll mean that we can have some very, like, interesting stuff happening. After that, I might add, like, a quick command to just zombify a given corpse. But more or less after that, and once I've solved a couple of our peripheral bugs, not very big bugs, thankfully, we can get a new version out. We haven't had a new version in a bit. In fact, let me check. When was the last time that I released a Various Oddities version? Out of curiosity. It was September of last year. Oh boy. Now, by default, by default, the setting for whenever a corpse spawns is only when it's needled. There is no source of the needled status effect in Various Oddities, but there is one in Various Equipment, which is a popular add-on for this. So, yeah, by default, if you're playing with Various Oddities with basic settings, the corpses are a completely irrelevant feature. But if you're playing with Various Equipment, you can get those bodies going, and then we can do all sorts of fun, weird stuff. But it is an interesting notion that if you are fighting enemy players in, like, PvP, and you can find a way to give them the needled status effect fairly reliably, you significantly increase your breathing room in between them respawning. Because they have to wait for that bar to fill up. And in that time, they can't do anything, so you can pick up all of their items and all sorts. It's like, it's tricksy. But in the meantime, I want to add a couple of more species, I think. And ideally a couple more fairly low level, probably, templates. A reminder that these are data pack driven, so you can happily change these all around, add your own custom ones. It's It's like Origins, but dramatically expanded. And then you can play an insectile lizard folk, for instance. Which reminds me, there's this ability at the bottom here, Tremor Sense. Basically means that whenever anything is on the ground, you can see it glowing. There's a pig over here, we'll see him in a hot second. Yeah. This is one of the abilities I'm probably going to turn into a toggle. It was very heavily requested that Dark Vision here become a toggle, because what Dark Vision does, as we saw earlier tonight, is it gives you night vision. It gives you night vision, which means you basically don't register light levels. And previously that was a permanent effect. The side effect being, you had no idea if a given room was well lit enough to not spawn mobs. And I think constantly seeing the outlines of all nearby mobs might get a bit wearisome as well. So since we're adding template access with this next patch, we probably want to make sure that that's a toggle as well. Fairly straightforward at the very least, we just have to check if it's active. Otherwise, I need to work on the form abilities. We have 2 of those now. So we have Ghost Form and we have Mist Form. And very simply, they just give you either the Gaseous ability, or they give you the Incorporeality ability. This one allows you to walk through walls, this one does not, but it means you don't have collisions, so you can just walk through everything. For whatever reason, they're giving permanent abilities and they're not taking them away. And I haven't figured out why that has started happening, and I haven't figured out exactly how to make it stop doing that. There's also additional benefits, because Incorporeality and Gaseous Form in particular gives you damage reduction 10, because you're mist. How much is a sword going to hurt you? But yeah. Surprise creeper when I misclicked and had permanent night vision wasn't fun. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, this is effectively like hit a button and you have a static ability. You have a new static ability, that kind of thing. And I need to figure that out properly so that vampires will work better. Vampires are still missing a fair few different features. They can shapeshift by route as well. They can control animals and they can summon animals to their bidding and such. And that's going to really rely on the companion system, because right now if you summon an angry wolf, it is just as likely to eat you as the person you wanted it to actually eat. So, it's easy to make an ability that just summons an entity. It is much harder to make an ability that summons an entity that you are then in control of. We have also... Possession is a big feature. It's a really big feature. And we got the vast majority of it working, but I don't want to push an update that has incomplete code like this if I can. Especially very buggy code, for that matter. But we did manage to get it to be that you were in control of a creature that was pre-existing, and you were basically immortal, but it could still die and then you'd be shoved out. That has been moved to its own dev space. You can find that in a fork on the GitHub. Otherwise, look forward to that in a future version. It will not be this one. But if we get that, once we get that working, I should stress, we'll be able to make shapeshifting very easily by just implementing the creature that you would be shapeshifting into, spawning it, and then possessing it immediately. So, shapeshifting at that point, super easy. Ridiculously easy. We can also do other things like just taking control of other people. And now that we've got the body system, we can theoretically implement scrying very easily just by setting your body to be unconscious and your soul to be roaming. You are no longer bound by your body. You can go wherever you like. All sorts of other stuff coming with that, so it's a great thing. It does heavily rely on brute forcing brain-body separation in Minecraft, which Minecraft really should have implemented years and years and years and years ago, but here we are, so bleh. Other than that, more or less everything else here is just like texturing and such, so yay. Looking good. Should be fun. Just requires that I get some bugs fixed. Oh yes, one other thing that I need to do before I ramble myself hoarse. The climbing ability currently allows you to go up ledges without any kind of concern. If you've been watching LD Shadow Lady's Afterlife SMP, she's using the origin spot, but it's the same principle here. She has the raccoon ability, the raccoon origin, which gives her effectively dark vision and climbing, top left there. Her night vision is constant, which prompted me to remember that, hey, there was a reason people asked us to make that a toggle. Her climbing is, however, a little bit better than we've got implemented here, because we can't stop. I am constantly having to move to make sure I don't fall down the ceiling, fall down the wall here. So I need to make that if you are shifting when you're in this position, you should stop. I need to re-implement that feature from ladders and vines and such. But that is a thing. That is a thing. Okay. Hey, that's all I've got time for tonight. If we start work on inventory, we'll be here literally all night. So I hope you've all enjoyed. My next stream is on Thursday. We'll be playing some games with the World of Madness crew, probably more Deep Rock Galactic because we're all addicted to it. Then on Saturday, we'll be playing some random games with patrons. And if you want to if you want to help me with the like paying for keeping the lights on, which is actually an increasingly difficult problem here in the UK, or just for my medication, because these don't come cheap. You can head over to patreon.com/lying. We do have events every month and such, and I try to get as much bonus content to them as I can. But otherwise, hope you've all enjoyed, and I'll catch you all as ever next time. Telling you can sleep? Well, if you're a lich, then possibly not, but you can set your spawn point at least.